It is 9 at night, and you are lying in bed doing the one thing you promised yourself you would not do. You open the app. You are not looking for anything in particular. You feel fine. Then the feed begins to move. Someone you went to school with is standing on a balcony in a city you cannot afford. Someone you barely remember has started a company. A person you used to date looks happier than they ever seemed with you. You keep scrolling, because the thumb has a will of its own by now, and somewhere in the next 4 minutes, something quietly turns over inside you. Nothing happened. No one insulted you. Nothing in your actual life changed between the moment you picked up the phone and the moment you set it down. And yet you feel smaller, heavier, vaguely, unaccountably behind. You tell yourself it is tiredness, or the hour, or that you really should stop looking at screens before bed. All of that is true, and none of it is the reason. The reason is that you just made a series of moves in a game. A game with a scoreboard you cannot see, played against opponents you did not choose, under rules you never agreed to and have never once read. You have been playing it your whole life. You are playing it right now, listening to this. And almost no one ever stops to ask the only questions that actually matter. What is the game? Who wrote the rules? And is there any way, ever, to win? Let us start with the uncomfortable part. The game is status, and you are not a casual player. You are a professional, trained since birth, competing full-time whether you want to or not. We flinch at that word, status, because it sounds shallow. It brings to mind sports cars and gold watches, and people who peaked in ways we would rather not examine. So let me take the shame out of it, because the shame is hiding how serious this is. Status is not vanity. It is one of the oldest survival systems your brain owns. For almost the entire history of our species, a human alone was a dead human. You survived only inside a group, and where you stood inside that group decided nearly everything. Whether you ate first or ate last. Whether you were protected or exposed. Whether you had children or your line simply ended. For your ancestors, a fall in standing was not an insult. It was a threat to their life. So evolution did the sensible thing. It wired us to track our rank constantly, automatically, and with feeling, so that losing status hurts and gaining it feels wonderful. The same way hunger and fullness keep you eating. The ones who did not care where they stood did not become anyone's ancestors. The writer Will Storr calls this the status game, and his central claim is deceptively simple. Almost every arena of human life, once you look closely, turns out to be a game in which the real prize is the good opinion of other people. The job is a status game. The car is a status game. The clothes, the vocabulary, the opinion you posted, the cause you champion, the person on your arm, the neighborhood you mention a little too casually. We tell ourselves these choices are about function, or taste, or ethics, and sometimes they honestly are. But a quieter process is running underneath the whole time, keeping score, asking one ancient question about every room you walk into. Where do I rank here? And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. You do not feel yourself doing it. The game runs below the surface of your awareness, which is precisely why it runs you. Now, if this were only about bruised egos and hurt feelings, we could file it under vanity and move on. It is not. Your place in the hierarchy does not just live in your head. It gets into your body. It shortens or lengthens your life. In 1967, an epidemiologist named Michael Marmot began studying an enormous group of British civil servants, the office workers of Whitehall in London. It was close to a perfect laboratory, and here is why. Everyone in it had a job. No one was poor in any desperate sense. Everyone had the same national health care, breathed the same London air, walked the same streets. The one thing that truly separated them was rank, where each person sat on the tidy, visible ladder of the civil service, from the administrators at the top to the messengers and doorkeepers at the bottom. What Marmot found is one of the quietly disturbing results in modern medicine. The lower a person's rank, the sooner they tended to die. Not a little sooner. Men in the lowest grade had roughly 3 times the mortality rate of the men at the top. And it was not a simple gap between the comfortable and the struggling. It was a smooth staircase. Every single step down the ladder, at every level, health got worse and death came earlier. Even among people who were all, by any global measure, doing perfectly well. The obvious explanation is that the people lower down smoked more, ate worse, moved less. They did, somewhat. But when Marmot's team accounted for every lifestyle factor they could measure, those habits explained less than a third of the difference. The rest was something else. The best name we have for that something is the one Marmot gave it: the status syndrome. It was not the cigarettes killing them fastest. It was the standing. The daily, grinding experience of being low in a hierarchy, of having little control and little say, was getting under their skin and into their arteries. The game we keep calling shallow turns out to be played, in the end, with your lifespan. Which raises a strange and slightly humbling question. If this really is that deep, that biological, then we should not be the only animals playing it. And we are not. Since 1978, a neuroscientist named Robert Sapolsky has spent his life doing something most of us would not survive a week of. He has followed troops of wild baboons across Kenya, learning them as individuals, drawing their blood, reading the chemistry of their stress. Baboons make unusually good subjects for an almost comic reason. Out on the savannah, they have solved survival so efficiently that they only need a few hours a day to feed themselves, which leaves them with long, idle hours to do the thing they truly excel at, which is being absolutely vile to one another in the pursuit of rank. And when Sapolsky measured their bodies, he found our story written in another species. The low-ranking baboons, the ones constantly pushed around, harassed, and displaced, carried the physical signature of chronic stress. Higher levels of stress hormones sitting in the blood even at rest. Higher blood pressure. Bodies that could not switch the alarm off. The same pattern as the men of Whitehall, minus the salary and the pretending. Rank was in their blood, quite literally. Then something happened that no ethical experiment would ever be allowed to arrange, and it became one of the most remarkable findings in the whole field. One of Sapolsky's troops, which he called the Forest Troop, lived near a tourist lodge with a rubbish dump full of discarded meat. Reaching that meat meant fighting for it. So the baboons who fed there were the most aggressive, most dominant males, the enthusiastic champions of the dominance game. The meat was infected with tuberculosis. Over a short period, it killed them. It killed, more or less, the entire aggressive top of the male hierarchy, and left behind the gentler males and the females. What happened next is the part worth sitting with. The troop did not merely calm down for a season. It changed its entire culture. The surviving males were friendlier. They groomed each other more, sat closer together, tormented the weak far less. The low-ranking members lost the chemical fingerprint of chronic stress. And most astonishing of all, this new and kinder culture outlived the individuals who began it. Baboon society works so that young males leave home and join new troops as they mature. So within a few years, every original member of that peaceful troop was gone, replaced by outsiders born elsewhere and raised on the old brutal rules. And still, the peaceful culture held. The newcomers arrived swaggering, and the troop, somehow, taught them a gentler way to be. Tit with what that means. The rules of the game, the rules carving years off human lives and stress into baboon blood, the rules that feel as fixed and permanent as gravity, turned out not to be fixed at all. A group of primates, with no meeting and no manifesto, rewrote the game they were playing and passed the new version on. Hold on to that, because we're going to need it in a moment. But before we get to escape, we have to understand why the game is so hard to see, and why, played the usual way, it is close to impossible to win. And it comes down to one merciless little feature. Status is not absolute. It is relative. You never actually feel wealthy or clever or attractive or successful in some fixed and freestanding way. You only ever feel it in comparison, measured against the particular people you happen to be standing beside. This is why a millionaire in a room of billionaires can feel poor, and why a child with almost nothing can feel rich among friends who have less. And it is why the game is a treadmill by design. The instant you reach the rung you were straining for, your eyes lift, without asking your permission, to the next one. The promotion you were certain would settle you settles nothing, because now you are comparing upward to the people one level higher. The researchers who study this put it plainly. The desire for status is essentially never satisfied. It cannot be, because there is no finish line built into a game whose entire scoring system is other people. For most of human history, there was at least a natural ceiling on the madness. You compared yourself to the few hundred people in your village, and among a few hundred people, it is genuinely possible to matter. To be the one who tells the best stories, or mends the nets, or knows the old songs. Then, very recently, in a change your ancient wiring has no defense against, we took that small and survivable arena and swapped it for the whole planet. You now stand, every single day, in a global stadium, against the most beautiful, most gifted, most successful, most photogenic humans alive, or at least against the polished sliver of themselves they chose to show. Your brain, built to compete with the village, cannot tell the difference. It treats every stranger's best moment as a rival who just beat you. You were handed a game with no ceiling, plugged into an opponent pool of 8 billion, and told, gently, by nearly everything around you, that winning it is the point of your life. And you are not even playing one game. Store points out that we play at least 3 at once, usually without noticing which. There is the dominance game, the oldest, where status is seized by force and fear, the game of the bully and the strongman. There is the virtue game, where status flows to whoever can appear the most moral, the most pure, the most righteous. A game the modern internet plays with something close to religious devotion. And there is the success game, where status is earned through real skill and achievement. We slide between all 3, often inside a single conversation, and a great deal of the confusion and quiet misery of social life comes from playing one game while assuming everyone else is playing another. So that is the trap, laid out honestly. A game you cannot see, running beneath your awareness. A scoreboard that is always relative, so it can never be finished. An opponent pool the size of the species. And a culture whispering the whole time that the way to be happy is to win. It is, when you say it out loud, a faintly absurd situation to have been born into. Which is exactly why the way out is not what you would expect. Because the first move most people reach for is to quit. To announce, loudly, that they are above all of this. That they do not care about status. That they have opted out entirely. It is a lovely idea. And it is a trap inside the trap. Watch closely. And you will notice that the person who declares they do not care about status is almost always bidding for a very particular kind of status. The prestige of being the one too deep, too wise, too spiritually advanced to play. There is no exit door marked not playing. Every not playing is simply another move. So you cannot leave the game, but you can do something better, and it arrives in 3 parts. The first is to see it. This sounds far too small to matter, and it is the whole foundation. A game that controls you, only while it stays invisible, loses most of its power the moment you can watch yourself playing it. The next time you feel that cold little drop while scrolling, or that warm flush of superiority when you disapprove of a stranger, or that itch to mention the achievement you did not need to mention, you get to notice it and name it. That is a move in the status game. And a feeling you can name is a feeling that is no longer simply you. It becomes weather passing through, rather than the voice of God. The second is to choose your games on purpose, because they do not all cost the same. The dominance game, run on fear and control, corrodes the person playing it, and, as a certain troop of baboons demonstrated, occasionally leads its most enthusiastic winners straight to the tainted meat. The endless comparison games of the global feed are close to unwinnable by design. But there are better boards, games of real skill, where you measure yourself against the work and against who you were last year, rather than against a stranger's highlight. Games of virtue that are actually about being good rather than appearing good. Small games, with small groups and shallow hierarchies, where status is something a community shares instead of something a few people hoard. A local team, a craft, a friendship, a quiet room of people trying to get better at the same real thing. And you play many of them, deliberately, so that no single loss can ever persuade you that you, entirely, have lost. And the third is to remember the baboons. To remember that the rules which feel like laws of nature are not laws of nature. They are only the version of the game your particular troop happens to be playing, and troops can change what they reward. A family can decide to hand its esteem to kindness rather than conquest. A friendship can run on warmth rather than one-upmanship. Even a small corner of the internet, if it chooses, can reward depth over noise. You are not only a player in the game. You are, in every room you enter, one of the people quietly deciding what the game rewards. So, it is 9 at night, and you are lying in bed, and your thumb is reaching for the app again. Only this time something is different. This time, when the feed begins to move and that old cold weight begins to gather in your chest, you recognize it. You know its name. You know it is not a fact about your life, but a reflex millions of years older than you, firing on cue, a move in a game you can finally see the whole board of. And for the first time, seeing the board, you get to do the one thing the game was designed to stop you from ever doing. You get to decide whether to play.